Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this is from Children of Scientology Substack, dated May 11th, 2025. How Scientology raises adults in small bodies, also known as kids. Childhood is not required, since your soul is 1 billion years old and your value is measured in stats. Children of Scientology. What do you get when you raise kids like they've grown up in tiny bodies? Teach them to take the blame for everything. It's also narcissism as well. And call it spiritual advancement. Yeah, Scientology doesn't believe in childhood, or rest, or grief, or safety. It's sad. But it does believe in you, as long as you're producing and contributing. And how many stories have we heard about people who were producing that were committing either financial crimes or sexual crimes against children or women? How many times have we heard that? Imagine what that does to a kid. Being raised in this way meant you weren't protected, but you were expected to contribute, obey, and never complain. Notice how many of the Scientology parents never come out publicly and say that they were wrong or that they were sorry. And maybe that's something they need to do behind closed doors, I suppose, but it would be nice to see a little more of it. Let's unpack what they really meant for us and our familial relationships and what healing might look like. There's also an audio. All right, buckle up, because understanding Scientology, parenting, takes a little context. Well, they basically don't do it. And maybe a few deep breaths. Let's dive into the weird, wild world of Scientology's take on kids. Spoiler alert, it's not warm and fuzzy. So what does Scientology really teach about children? First, the basics. L. Ron Hubbard, in Child Dianetics, dropped this gem. A child is not a special species of animal distinct from a man or woman. A child is a man or woman who has not attained full growth. Translation: Scientology doesn't see kids as kids. Nope. They're just tiny adults. Or as Hubbard would say, ageless spirits in little bodies. And here's the kicker. Then he said, any law which applies to the behavior of men and women applies to children. You know, like ethics handlings, like conditions of treason, conditions of doubt, conditions of non-existence. Sound dangerous? Yeah, that's because it is. So let's examine just why this is so messed up. If kids are just little adults, they lose their childhood. They lose their rights. They lose protections designed specifically for their vulnerability. Now they're equals, expected to pull their weight like everyone else. Forget bedtime stories and cuddles. Welcome to group member status, where you're a resource for Scientology's needs. Traditional parent-child roles, poof, gone. Instead, kids become ageless spirits in tiny bodies, valuable only if they're contributing. Producing, Oh, and bodies? Just meat. Scientology doesn't value them much, except maybe to carry more Scientology pamphlets. Let's not forget about Scientology's greatest good doctrine. Everything in Scientology revolves around the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. Translation: what's good for Scientology is good for the world. So naturally, every life decision, big or small, has to prioritize Scientology. This means your health, irrelevant. Your dreams, doesn't matter. Your happiness, who cares? Unless, of course, your dreams align perfectly with the church. Spoiler, they probably don't. And remember, in Scientology, all bad things that happen to you, they're your fault. Here's another Hubbard special. You pull in all the bad things that happen to you. Car accident, illness, assault. You brought it on yourself. Why? Because you must have done something bad, maybe even in a past life. Can't find the memory? Don't worry. Scientology will help you invent one. Yep. Welcome to False Memories 101. And if you show emotions like pain, fear, or grief, well, you're low tone and not worth anyone's time. Feeling bad is basically only for losers in Scientology. What about those suppressive persons, or SPs, otherwise known as the big bad boogeyman? Here's a Scientology nightmare. If you criticize Scientology or displease the group, you risk being declared an SP, a suppressive person. That means you're pure evil, beyond redemption, and contagious. Once you're declared an SP, you're completely cut off, until you recant. Family, friends, everyone in Scientology is compelled to disconnect or be declared suppressive themselves. To a Scientologist, being declared SP is worse than death. This fear keeps parents, siblings, and friends in line and willing to abandon you in a heartbeat. The biggest gaslighting of all, you're expected to always be able to make it go right. Even kids. This is the golden rule. Anything can be accomplished if you just try hard enough. Failure isn't an option. If you don't succeed, you're not trying. If you're suffering, it's your fault. And let's not forget, complaining or being critical just means you have crimes. And reporting outside of Scientology is a crime. LAPD, how about that? This creates a perfect storm for kids. They can't express their feelings safely. They blame themselves for everything. They're trained to mute their voices entirely. They have zero advocacy. And what about the dark side of ethics? Scientology's ethics policies and punishments are its way of keeping everyone in line. What does that mean for kids? Victim blaming, shaming, punishment, and threats. Anything unacceptable gets handled by ethics, which basically means the child is blamed for whatever happened to them. Oh, don't worry, you can get a book on Amazon about it, of course. And if a crime like abuse occurs, reporting to outside authorities is forbidden. Only Scientology can fix things, which just ensures that perpetrators face no real consequences. Kind of like a lot of the things that go on in LAPD, right? So what's the fallout of growing up like this? Growing up in Scientology can leave you with a unique set of survival skills and scars. Here's what life as a Scientology kid can teach you. Hyper-independence, because no one else has your back. Inauthenticity, because being real isn't safe. Perfectionism, because failure is not an option. Lack of education, because real-world laws, rights, and knowledge aren't taught. Age-inappropriate lessons in relationships, because kids are fair game romantically. And that's sick. Sick. Really sick. You learn that your value is tied to your productivity, your ability to further Scientology's goals. Nothing more, nothing less. And for an additional layer of exploitation and the billion-year Sea Org trap, for kids, the end game is often the Sea Org, Scientology's paramilitary group. Recruitment starts young with promises of adventure, travel, and education. You're often pretty miserable at home, so prime picking for recruiters who stalk you, love bomb you, flatter and flirt with you, make you feel seen and heard, and even important, at least long enough to get you to sign on the dotted line. Spoiler, you get none of the things you're promised. Instead, you'll work endlessly, sleep rarely, eat minimally, have no life outside. And if you struggle, it's your fault. You'll be punished with more ethics. Failing in the Sea Org is pretty much guaranteed, unless you're an android. And wanting to leave for any reason simply means you have crimes. That's the trap, you guys. Sensing a pattern here? Either way, it's pretty hard to escape. Thanks to the snitching culture, 24/7, 1984-style monitoring, constant roll calls, and even drills designed to track down escapees. Scientology has labor trafficking pretty much perfected, even billing its staff for all their training if they dare to leave. Until you settle your debt, you'll be considered a freeloader. So persona non grata. In the real world, it's called debt bondage. Who knew? Yeah, they've been doing it for thousands of years. And what's the cost if you leave Scientology entirely? Well, leaving Scientology as a child means losing everything. Family, friends, and any sense of security. A place to live, food, clothing. You're starting over from scratch, without even the language to describe what you've been through. It means heading off into the dangerous WOG world on your own. Scary stuff. And what about healing? It's a long, hard road. Some of us make it out, some don't. But if you're reading this, you're already one of the lucky ones. So if you're navigating life after this childhood, take it slow and one step at a time. You'll need to relearn, even learn what it means to be human. Give yourself permission to feel, to fail, to just be. No matter what, remember, it wasn't your fault. You were a kid, and you deserve better. Check back here for more survivor tips and tricks, and please share any you have in the comments. We need every one we can get. I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night, wherever you are. Peace.